So one morning this week, something really cool happened. My inbox greeted me with Sahil Bloom's Curiosity Chronicles. It's a newsletter I've been subscribed to for quite some time. So that wasn't really the cool part. It arrives in my inbox every week, but on this particular morning, it really piqued my interest. You see, the topic was how to create your own luck. Right up my alley. But what transpired next is what's truly awesome. Hey friends, I'm Dennis Geelen, author of The Accidental Solopreneur. Welcome to the Happy Accidents podcast, where we dive into real stories of unexpected success, from chance encounters in everyday life to the serendipitous moments that shaped thriving businesses. Each episode uncovers surprising events that anyone can learn from. Let's jump into today's adventure. So if you're not familiar with Sahil Bloom, you really should check him out on X, where he has like over 1 million followers. And then on LinkedIn, he's got over 600,000 followers. And his newsletter, The Curiosity Chronicles, the one that lands in my inbox every week, that has over 800,000 subscribers. So why should you follow Sahil? Well, give him a follow, subscribe to his newsletter, and you'll see for yourself. But one of the principles that he shared in this particular newsletter really caught my eye. It was all about taking bold shots, shooting your shot, reaching out to people, making unexpected connections, and seeing where the chips fall. Right up my alley. This is something that if you are subscribed to this podcast, whether you watch it on YouTube or listen on something like Spotify or Apple, or if you subscribe to the Happy Accidents newsletter, or you follow me on social media for that matter, you know that this is something I talk about all the time. So he dove in and gave a personal story as an example, and it goes like this. So a few years ago, back in 2023, Sahil wrote a thread on X that caught the eye of Bill Ackman. Now, if you know who Bill is, he is a quite famous investor who's got quite a large following on X himself. Well, Bill interacted with that thread. In fact, he reposted it and said, "This is worth a read." And I'll put the link to Sahil's newsletter in the show notes here so you can read the newsletter itself and get the full story. But basically, what happened was Sahil saw that Bill reposted his thread on X, and then he replied. He did a cold outreach to Bill and just said, "Hey, thanks for sharing this," something like that. I'd love to get together, dinner on me type thing. Well, that simple action that Sahil took, and it was simple, but took a little bit of bravery. He's doing a cold outreach to somebody he's never connected with before. So taking some bold action, taking some risk, shooting a shot. That actually turned into a meeting. They had a conversation. They built a relationship. And then fast forward to now, 2025, Sahil just released his new book, The 5 Types of Wealth. So he followed up with Bill, sent him a copy of the book. Bill then publicly endorsed the book to his massive audience. He posted about it on X. He said he hardly ever gives any recommendations for books, but he's recommending this one. That was huge. That post sent waves of attention Sahil's way and his books, which is now already a 2-time New York Times bestseller. And at the time that he sent out the newsletter, it was the second most purchased book on Amazon. Incredible at that time. So more than Atomic Habits, more than Harry Potter, all these popular books. Sahil's book was number 2 on Amazon. Crazy, right? Pretty cool. Well, here's where things get really interesting for me. Needless to say, Sahil's story really struck a chord. I've always believed that luck favors the bold. Those willing to act on curiosity and create opportunities, those are the people where luck finds them. So I was inspired and I decided to take my own shot myself. So what did I do? I replied to Sahil's email newsletter. And if you're watching this on YouTube. I'll put the screenshot right on the screen, but for anybody listening, just to the audio version, I'll just read you the email so you know exactly what I wrote back. So I wrote, absolutely love this one, Sahil. Been following you for a few years now, and I love your stuff. My copy of your book arrives tomorrow. I'd ordered his book, and Amazon gave me an update. It's arriving tomorrow. Probably have it by the time this podcast is out already. My whole brand is built around increasing your luck surface area and shooting your shot. I'm actually giving a TED Talk on this in May. May 3rd, I give a TEDx Talks, my first one ever, and it's all about the science of serendipity and increasing your luck surface area. So then I wrote, I've interviewed some great people with cool stories on my Happy Accidents podcast, and I give Jay Klaus, Finn McKenty as examples and said, I would love to have you on it. I don't have a huge following, so there's not a whole lot in it for you, but hey, you have to shoot your shot, right? Best, Dennis. So that was the email I sent off to him. And then I got to thinking, well, he probably gets flooded in his inbox with emails, so he's maybe not even able to see my reply. But here I was. I reached out to someone I admire, someone I'd hesitated to contact before, and who knows what could happen, right? But as I got thinking about it more, I'm thinking, yeah, is he ever even going to see this email? So then I took it a step further. I decided I'm going to post about this, my little interaction and my idea here on both X and LinkedIn, and tag Sahil in both those posts. I know he's extremely active on both those platforms. There's probably a much better chance of him seeing that notification that he's been tagged in a post and responding than he is seeing one of thousands or who knows how many tens of thousands of emails that show up in his email inbox. So here we go again. Got to shoot your shot, right? So again, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the screenshot of my post of both X and LinkedIn up on the screen. But very simple. My X post was short and sweet, just said, well, this was a delight to read this morning. If you're not subscribed to the Curiosity Chronicle newsletter from Sahil Bloom, and I tagged him, I suggest you sign up. Today's edition was right up my alley, sharing how he took a shot and increased his luck surface area. And then I provided the link to his newsletter. So obviously doing him some service here, way smaller audience I have than he does, but doing some promotion for his stuff, tagged him in it, gave him praise. And then in LinkedIn, I wrote very similar, but slightly different. It was, well, this was a delight to read this morning. If you're not subscribed to the Curiosity Chronicle newsletter from Sahil Bloom, I suggest you sign up. Today's edition was right up my alley, sharing how he took a shot and increased his luck surface area. But then I added this extra context. I responded both by email and on X and invited him to be a guest on my Happy Accidents podcast. You have to shoot your shot, right? And then again, I posted the link to his newsletter, so I'm giving him some plugs there. I should mention on X, I went in and did a follow-up to the post inviting him to be on the podcast. Well, turns out that strategy actually worked. Sahil saw both of those on X and LinkedIn and replied to both. So here's the reply on X. Again, you can see it on the screen on YouTube. First, he writes, thanks for sharing. It was a fun story to tell. So I replied to that saying, I'd love to have you come tell it on my Happy Accidents podcast. What do you say? He responded again, I'm taking a break right now, but if you email me at, and he gives his email address, in a couple of months, I'm sure we can find a time. So I just wrote back, absolutely. Thanks, Sahil. So the door has been opened. At the moment, I'm busy. Contact me again in a few months. We are going to make this happen. Awesome. Great response. Obviously put a smile on my face. Now I'm like, wow, am I ever glad I shot my shot there? I go over and check on LinkedIn, and he writes, looking forward to it. So that's pretty much, yes, I'll come on your podcast, and I'm looking forward to doing it. So I responded, me too, Sahil. You're the perfect guest for the podcast. So there we have it. I've shot my shot 3 different ways, both, giving him kudos, loved his newsletter, told people to subscribe to it, told people to follow it, and then followed that up with, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. You'd be a perfect fit for it. And he responded in 2 different platforms saying, yeah, pretty much, let's do this. Not at the moment, I'm busy, but let's line this up in a few months. So having Bill Ackman post about his book was huge. It's now massive on Amazon. It's a 2-time New York Times bestseller. Having Sahil be a guest on this podcast would be massive for me, right? Just like having Bill endorse Sahil's book, having Sahil be a guest on my podcast would have a same ripple effect. Will it happen? Will he come on the Happy Accidents podcast in the next few months? I'm hoping so. It's looking good. I've got a reminder in my calendar already to follow up with Sahil and make it happen. But you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. But even if it doesn't happen, you got to shoot your shot. You have to go for it. If I never followed up, if I didn't do that and I just thought, wow, that was a great newsletter article, man, he'd be a great guest to have on my podcast. But what are the chances? I'm not even going to reach out. It's that fear, it's that insecurity that stops you from going for it. Shoot your shot. And yeah, people might say no. Maybe 9 out of 10 people say no. But maybe there's one that says, yeah, let's do that. You don't know unless you shoot your shot. So, here's my challenge to you. This week, I want you to take one bold shot. Send that email. Reach out to that person. Share your idea. And then let serendipity do its thing. That's it. Get out there and increase your luck surface area, folks.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Happy Accidents podcast. I hope you find these stories as intriguing and insightful as I do. But make sure you don't miss an episode. You can subscribe to my Accidental Solopreneur channel on YouTube and watch these episodes in video form, or subscribe to the Happy Accidents podcast on Apple and Spotify for your listening pleasure. Until next time, stay lucky, my friends.